What got you into boxing? How did you get into it?
I had my own school of kickboxing, so that was the transition going from there to boxing where all the big boys were at. So here I am now with the big boys.
And for the viewers, can you name just maybe some of the world champions corners you've worked throughout the years?
Bro, I've done them all, man. And in the UFC, every one of them, every big fight. Now I've been gone for 9 years, right?
Yeah.
But every big fight, I mean, Randy Couture, Titor, I mean, just every one of them. Fedor, Krokop, every one of them. Boxing, the Klitschko brothers, going way back, Johnny Tapia, Raul Marcus, Mike McCallum, going current, Andre Ward, like I said, the two Klitschko brothers, Amir Khan, I mean, just so many, Shakir Stevenson, Jared Anderson. So many, I don't even count no more, bro.
And
those are things of the past already.
Yeah, no, I mean that's great experience. So, and your job as a cut man, for those people who don't know, maybe is primarily just to deal with the fighter if a cut does occur. Is that right?
Well, that and then and another option that we bring in is wrapping their hands when they get into the dressing room. Then if they need their hands wrapped, then that's one of the skills that we offer them. Come fight time, yeah, my job is to give them that one more round, and if they swell up or they get cut, my job is to control it and take care of them. And
do you wrap fighters' hands often?
All the time. Too many times, because I guess I got a pretty good rap. And once these guys find out that I'm working the fights, and they ask me to, well, like Top Rank, because I'm during the COVID Top Rank, because I live 20 minutes from the MGM. They had 16 fights in the bubble. And they called me and Mike Basil to be the house cutman because they could only bring a trainer. And, so I started working with them. And then after the COVID finished, they continued. But now that these guys see that I'm working on the list, I mean, I worked last Saturday, or Friday, I worked 4 fights, and I think I wrapped 3 fighters' hands. And, so that's a question that people ask me all the time.
That's great, and there's a whole art to wrapping hands, right? People don't realize.
100%. Yeah, bottom line is so they don't break them. They feel comfortable enough where they can punch at the maximum strength and still protect their hands. Yeah, there's an art to it for sure.
I had small hands, so I used to hate when they would wrap between my fingers because my hands were so small. I don't know, it just was always uncomfortable for me.
Well, and that might have been too tight. That's the thing about it, right? You got to look at it. If it's cutting into the skin, and yeah, it's a little too tight. And the only reason for that's a good point, going between the fingers, is to keep the padding in place. It's the only reason. So
now, do you also go in? Do you ever go in and watch the other guys wrap the hands? Are you the person watching?
So I do sometimes. If they send me to the other corner, of course, it's a psychology moment at that time. Have me watching them wrap their hands, because a lot of guys follow my style, and so it's I go often.
Do you ever have people complaining while you're wrapping hands, like kind of protesting something you're doing?
They try to. They try to throw a little innuendos. I have my own line of tape, right? Stitch Premium athletic tape. It's available at Cutman for Hire Supplies, by the way.
That's great.
But yeah, I'm wrapping Joe Smith's hands. I think we're in Atlantic City, and I'm using my tape, and I finished wrapping his hands, and the guy that's watching says, "Hey, you can't use that tape." I said, "What the fuck you talking about?" Then he challenged me, so I put him in check. And then when I finished, the commission says, "Yeah, of course, tape's been approved," which is stupid on this guy's part. And after I finished wrapping hands, he asked me for a roll. I told him, "Nah, kiss my ass."
Yeah. So you've probably talked about this a bunch of times, but I'm going to ask you anyway. The Tim Tszyu fight that we just watched, what was that handled the right way, do you think?
Well, let me ask you. I'll be the analyst here. Let me ask
Okay.
you. Do you think that cut was handled the right way? I'll give you my answer. What you give me yours.
This is not
as a fan. You're responding as a friend.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, from what I understood, all you can do is put Vaseline on it. Am I wrong?
100% wrong.
Okay. What can you do?
And that's probably what happened. Yeah, the Tszyu fight was the whole team blew it. And that's not, that's because you don't understand the full aspect of the game, right? And I know because it's happened to me before. I've worked on these UFC fights, Forrest Griffin, when he got cut here, luckily I used everything and kept him in the game and he won. But once you pop that big giant vein when you get excited, right? The one you got right on your forehead there. Once you pop that vein, it's a little bit bigger than all the other ones. Plus the vessel is a little stronger. So the medication we use, the adrenaline chloride 1-1000, the one that's in the swab, that's a vessel constrictor. So as you put it on the cut, in theory, what it does is close up the blood vessels. But that one's a little thicker than the small ones around the eyes, and it's a lot harder to control. So Jay Haran, which he's proud, he's an actor, actually, he's in this movie Roadhouse with Connor and all these guys. Jay was, he took a knee from Jonathan Gillette, and the cut was maybe about this big, but it severed that vein, and he bled like a pig. It was the bloodiest fight I ever worked. Until that time, it was so much blood that it made me nauseated. But I try to control it, right? And there's a mixture of the adrenaline that I'll put with the Vaseline. So I put the medication on. I used everything, and then I covered it real nice with the Vaseline and adrenaline, and it just spurted right through the Vaseline. So, that just you can't stop them. So anyway, that mat right there is in Randy Couture's gym here in Las Vegas as the bloodiest fight that Jay Haran ever had. But going into this one now, Vladimir Klitschko this is what should have been. Well, let's go into Badou Jack. When Badou Jack fought, he had that nasty, nasty cut, and he bled like a pig, worse than Tim Tszyu. His whole face was to the point where he's shaking his head, just getting the blood out of his eyes. All right. So that was a big mistake because they let it go the distance, right? So when I worked with Vladimir Klitschko, which was the heavyweight champion of the world for 8 years after this fight, him and his brother Vitaly were both heavyweight champs. So the first time I worked with Vladimir, he had won the first 3 rounds. So I'm looking at scorecards, and this is what the team should have done. I'm looking at the scorecards. So he won the first 3 rounds, not looking great, but he won them. And in the 4th round, he gets dropped, all right? So as you look at the scorecard, it's still 3 rounds to 2 because when you drop somebody in a round, you get 2 points, all right? Well, in the 5th round, he gets an unintentional headbutt right here, that same cut. And, I go back to the Jay Haran story. So when the doctor came, when Vladimir sat down and Vitaly sat down and Emmanuel Storch on the other side, I whispered to Vitaly and Vladimir, I said, look, you have a bad cut. You're winning the fight. I'm going to have the doctor stop the fight. So when the doctor came, she knew me enough through my experience. She goes, what do you think, Stitch? And I go like this. I opened up the cut. I said, it's a pretty bad cut. She stopped it and went to the scorecards. He ended up winning the fight and then became world champion for 8 years after that. But in those 2 situations, they should have stopped the fight. Before the end of the 4th round, going into the 5th round, then they would have been a no contest. They would have had the probability of a rematch would have been excellent, and save them for another day. So yeah, and then even the work of the cutman was a little bit below par. But they don't expect those kind of cuts.
So let me get it straight. So the thing he should have done was add that adrenaline, which he didn't do. Is that it?
Well, that's a good point. Okay, because you put the adrenaline, and I don't know why these guys, they'll put the towel over the adrenaline, right? Try to do it, and this towel was bloody and all that, but they're putting the towel there. But then, as you look at logic, that adrenaline that is in the swab will get absorbed into the towel, so you lose a lot of the adrenaline, right? Common sense. And
right.
They didn't do that, So, I don't know what kind of medications they were using, but nonetheless, it should have been stopped as a team before it went to the distance. Now, if they would have stopped it, it would have been no contest. Once it goes past the 5th round, then it goes to the judges.
Okay, so is it possible that they did use adrenaline in that corner, or you don't think they did at all?
Well, yeah, I don't know if they did or not. I mean, because they put the swab, they put the towel over it. I don't know if they used adrenaline.
So you think their major mistake was just not having it stopped? Yeah,
that's number one. That was the whole team. Not so much. The cutman. I don't know who the cutman was, but I would understand his position. That's pretty bad cut, and it's that same vein. That that's coming down. So, I know he tried his best and just, maybe didn't have the tools to do it.
So,
And
okay, so we can fault, I guess, Tim Tszyu's corner, but what about the ringside doctor? Why didn't they just stop it on their own?
Good question. I don't know what the situations were there, whether they were giving him every opportunity to, go and finish the fight, being that he was a champion. But it's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. Because I'm watching it in the dressing room. I worked one of the earlier fights, and I prefer watching it in the dressing room in front of, instead of all these fans that are jumping and cheering and all that. And I like to listen to the commentating, and just like I'm watching TV, and I am, but I'm doing it in the dressing room.
Right, right. Yeah, that was interesting, and a lot of people believe that Tim Tszyu probably would have won the fight if not for the cut.
I don't know. That's the point that you're always going to be able to argue, but I would have stopped it in a couple different ways that would have benefited us. Number one, Fundora came in with a 10-day notice. The kid is 6'6", and an A caliber fighter. I would have stopped it enough. Let's get the rematch. Now I could train for a guy that's 6'6",
right.
But that's knowing the experience factor, Marco. And as I say in this sport, our sport, combat sports at the A level, none of us have to be certified to be working the corners or being a cutman. All you need is a towel, and you get licensed from every state, and you might take a quick, simple true or false test, which is all bullshit. But a lot of them don't know what they're doing. So, I always tell these young fighters, always try to educate as I go, because when I was learning to be a cutman, this was like 30-something years ago in Richmond, California. It was a boxing event. Bone Crusher Smith fought Marvis Frazier. And I asked this one guy that did a good job, and this was boxing only. He told me to F off. He said, fuck you. I'm taking this to my grave, and you got to learn like me, and he walked away. That was the mentality in boxing at that time, that he thought it was a secret. But being that I was a martial artist, those weren't my concepts. So my job was to teach. But here's what I tell these young fighters now, and it's extremely important. And ask a cutman, ask him what is the function of the adrenaline chloride 1-1000. That's the medication that we use, and that's by prescription only. That's why a lot of guys don't have it, right? But ask him what the function is. And if the guy tells you it's a coagulant, then get another cutman, because that's wrong. There's medications that coagulate the blood, but this is a vessel constrictor. And
coagulate means to basically blood clot it, right?
It just exactly, and the Avitine, the thrombin. That's what I used with Forrest Griffin when he fought Shogun. When he got that cut, I got the Avitine is like my wife described it best. It's like a cotton candy type of texture, but kind of sticky and that type of thing. So I got it and I rolled it up and I stuffed it in this cut. Actually, it was this way. I stuffed it in that cut. Then I put the Vaseline and adrenaline, and that kind of maintained it enough to where he ended up winning the fight. So that's one of the questions. A lot of guys will tell you, "Oh, it's a coagulant." It's because the blind is leading the blind. And that's a shame for it to be happening in our sport at this age.
It is. So what is allowed? I've always, in terms of dealing with a cut, what are you allowed to do and what are you not? Like, isn't there something, and I don't think this is allowed, and I don't know why, it's like a glue where you can just basically glue the cut shut? Doesn't that exist?
It's people have been asking me about that. It's somehow, no, well, let me tell you, the only medications that are used pretty much international, well, the one used international is the adrenaline chloride 1-1000. That's the vessel constrictor in the swab. The other ones that are authorized in the United States are Avitine, thrombin, which are coagulants. The Avitine, like I mentioned, is like a cotton candy. The thrombin is a liquid form. And then there's a new one that I introduced called Quick Aid, and it's 100% natural. It's made out of a seaweed base. So you don't need a prescription to get it, but when you put it on the cut, it dehydrates the blood, and that's the function for it. So it works great, So those are the ones that pretty much used throughout the United States. Worldwide, for the most part, the adrenaline only.
So using glue is completely illegal. They wouldn't let you do that.
Yeah, that's stupid. There's no margin for mistake. From what I understand, I was told the story that this guy in Brazil that was a cutman ended up putting crazy glue, super glue on a cut, and they closed the guy's eye to the point where he had to go to the hospital. You know, so there's no more. No, that's stupid. It's stupid. After fights, there are some doctors that will use it to close up a cut, but that's only if the cut is a straight cut. You know, there's some that are straight, and there's some that I call lightning, you know, that goes in different angles. The ones that are straight are easy to, you know, close it up with a glue, with a super glue, if you know what you're doing, but you don't do it in the heat of battle. It's stupid.
So is there like a list of things that the athletic commissions come to you and say, okay, you can use this? Do they give you a list of like allowed?
Good questions. Good questions, by the way.
Thank you.
Some commissions, like New York, they'll literally inspect your bottle and they'll check the expiration date, right? And so a lot of commissions will do that just to make sure you're using the proper things.
So they don't give you an actual list of, you know, allowed substances for the cuts and banned substances? Do they give you those lists at all? Do those exist?
No, but you should be aware of it anyway. You know, just common sense.
So nothing's actually.
Well, if you're in the mix, if you're in the game, then you know you're talking to a lot of people and you're getting, you know, different things. And if you're a cut man, you automatically ask those kind of questions. You know, so no, the commission doesn't tell you what's legal and what's not. They'll tell you what's legal and that's it. Anything else, you know, if you're using it, you'll get disqualified.
So they don't. So they give you a list.
And real quick, let me ask another story. Is there was this one guy that somehow somebody told me it was like dental floss. Now, and he put it inside a cut, and then he pulled the string out, which was stupid. You know, just, you know, people.
So they give you a list of what you can use, and that's all they provide.
But they don't give you a list. They'll just tell you. You know, we're only when you have your what you call the team meetings after the weigh-ins. They'll just tell you the only thing medications that are used are the adrenaline chloride 1/1000.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
So they'll tell you that verbally. But you should know those rules anyway. You know?
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Wow. Okay. So it's a pretty limited, you know, and it's a pretty limited amount of tools you have to deal with cuts, huh?
It's like a pit stop. You know, you got the kale swell, the metal iron. You got an ice pack. You got water. You got towels, and you got your medication. Yeah, it's pretty.
Did you know Nelson Cuevas?
I think I know Nelson by faces are a lot better than me, but I think
okay. Well, he passed away, but he was a cut man. He worked a lot with Mike Tyson in the early years. With Kevin Rooney, he worked.
Yeah. That's what I said. The name going way back. You know, it's he's an East Coast fat. Matter of fact, I did a show at the Garden and, with Vladimir Klitschko, right? So I'm working with one of the earlier fighters from the Ukraine, and so I get to the arena early, and I go in the dressing room, I put my back down, and I get down on my knees, and I'm getting all my stuff. And this guy behind me says, some old guy, I don't know who he was, why he said it. He says, "LA is your town, New York is my town." I looked back at him, I said, "I'm from Las Vegas." And I'm thinking, who is this guy? To this day, I don't know who he is. Yeah, that was funny. That was funny. Yeah, LA is your town, New York is my town. And I turned around. I said, "Man, I'm from Las Vegas, bro. You got the wrong information." You know?
That's so weird. That's so strange.
That's and these are all the wannabes. Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of them.
You should start or maybe you do like some kind of a school where for cut, you know, teaching people how to do it. And
well, I've done seminars. You know, I mean, last one I did was in Mexico City. It was like 120 students live, and then like 40 on Zoom. But you know, it's tough. I'm looking into doing videos and put them on air so people all over can watch them. And I put some out there, and you know, people have learned how to wrap hands by the videos I've shown and done. So there's some out there, but to actually get down and put chapters and chapters of how to handle every situation, maybe I'll do that because this game has to get better.
So speaking of the wrapping of the hand, so you know, there's that old thing where they say that certain guys who are cheating will put plaster of Paris in the wrap, and then when the glove comes on and it starts sweating, the plaster hardens, right? Is that true? Does that happen?
Well, that that was the thing with Margarito when he fought Miguel Cotto.
Right.
The story was, and I know because ESPN called me and they wanted my opinion on that. And here's what I say: I said, whenever you're working a championship fight like that, a big fight, right? You as your cut man, you already got your gauze, your padding for the knuckles, you got your tapes that are cut in half, you got everything already laid out. So what happened when Capatillo wrapped Margarito's hands, he reached in the bag and pulled out the padding. So what he did with it, I don't know. But very soundly do the wraps get wet from the gloves themselves because they're so thick, right? But yeah, so that was, I think that's what happened there. That was unfair. If he's going to go out there and try to manipulate the gloves, and well, Panama Lewis, when Louis Resto fought, what was the kid's name? Billy Collins. Panama Lewis on the gloves. Let me get over here. He cut a little piece and he used to be horsehair. So he took all the horsehair out, and so when he made contact, I remember Billy Collins. I read a story on Sports Illustrated where he told his father, "I feel like I'm getting hit with rocks." So it just knuckle, right? And he ended up going to jail for that.
Yeah, and then no, I know, and because to me it doesn't make sense, sort of, because they say that okay, the plaster of Paris is dry powder at first, but then as your hand sweats, it gets it wet, and then it hardens. But your hand, you've pulled guys, I've fought. It's always wet inside. Once it starts sweating inside the glove, it stays sweaty, doesn't dry out. So how could the plaster of Paris dry out?
Yeah, I don't know. It's all bullshit. And it's just, but they're all theories. Let's do this, let's do that. I remember I worked with Diego Corrales when he fought Jose Luis Castillo, the second fight. First one was a classic, right? Yeah. And so this guy in the dressing room comes up and he tries to give me a swab. And he says, "Hey man, this one will stop a bullet wound, And I'm looking at it and it's black. The cotton is white, right? Well, so I think it was like a sulfuric acid or base, sulfuric, whatever it was, but it burned the tissue. I looked at it, so I'm not going to use it. Number one, it's illegal. But number two, I don't know what the functions of this is, which I thought, but these situations happen till now. That's because none of us have to be certified. None of us, and
wow.
Everybody comes out the streets and, they're helping, and just so many mistakes in this game.
Wow. How many fights would you say you work a year?
Fights or shows? Shows I probably put in 40 shows a year. Fights, if you add multiple times, I'll do multiple fighters in one night. Very seldomly, like I was in England last week, I only work with one fighter. So if I do 40 shows, I probably work 60, 70 fights.
Wow. 40 shows. So that's
it's pretty common for me to do multiple fights. And I was doing that when I was with the UFC. Like I say, everybody wanted me to wrap their hands and everybody wanted me to work the corner. So I'll be doing 7, 8 fights a night. So,
that's great.
Yeah.
That is great. Well, Stitch, I appreciate you talking to me.
Sure.
It was fun, and let's talk again soon.
Anytime, man.
You got
stories like nobody. Good questions, Marco.
I appreciate you, man. Let's talk again soon. Take care.
All right, thanks. All right,
bye-bye.